Will paid a high price to buy a body that had been dead for 3 days, pretending it was his father. He sent it to a private hospital for emergency treatment, desperately begging the doctors to save his father, offering to pay any amount. Without asking about the patient's condition, the doctor instructed Will to pay the fees first. However, after a series of examinations, the doctors realized that the patient had no vital signs and had already been dead for some time. Despite this, they insisted on operating on the deceased, believing that Will, who appeared to be a devoted son, would spare no expense to save his father. This presented them with an excellent opportunity to take advantage of his desperation and charge him for unnecessary treatments. A group of doctors began pretending to be busy, constantly coming in and out of the room. The attending physician handed Will a list of medications, informing him that his father's condition was critical and that he should urgently purchase medicines from the pharmacy across the street. Will saw that the list contained dozens of different drugs, and following the instructions, he purchased 2 large bags full of medications, spending half of his savings. He handed the bags to a nurse, who immediately returned them to the pharmacy, reminding them to add a 10% kickback to next month's payment. After spending a fortune on medications, the doctor came out again, telling Will that another 300,000 yuan was required for the surgery. Will insisted that he had already paid for the surgery when he arrived, but the doctor explained that due to the critical nature of his father's condition, they needed to bring in a medical expert, which would incur additional costs. After Will paid another large sum, a serious-looking medical expert entered the operating room, and the family anxiously waited outside. However, inside the operating room, all the doctors and nurses gathered together to chat. Every half hour or so, one of them would pretend to be in the middle of surgery, walking back and forth, sweating profusely, as if performing an operation. The doctors were like experienced actors, and they continued asking Will to pay for various unnecessary tests. When Will had exhausted all his savings, the doctor finally emerged with a somber expression, telling him, "We did everything we could, but your father has passed away. Please accept our condolences." Will begged the doctor to try again, but the doctor replied, "There's nothing more we can do. We can't save a dead person." At this point, Will, who had been frantic, suddenly calmed down and said to the doctor, "Aren't you specialists in treating dead people?" He then revealed the death certificate, explaining that the body was not his father's but one he had purchased from a crematorium 3 days ago. "So, what were you all doing in the operating room for over 8 hours?" Upon hearing this, the 2 doctors panicked. They grabbed the death certificate from Will's hand and frantically tried to swallow it. But Will produced another certificate and told them to take their time eating it. The truth was, Will's purpose in this whole scheme was to expose the corruption of the hospital, as his wife had died on their operating table 5 years ago. Fearing their conspiracy would be exposed, the doctors took Will to the office, claiming the hospital's owner wanted to discuss compensation. But as soon as Will sat down, several assassins lunged at him, trying to silence him. Will fought them off, using his skills to defeat them, sending security guards flying and even smashing the desk under his feet. Realizing they couldn't overpower Will, the hospital had no choice but to agree to compensation. After receiving the large compensation, Will gave all of it to the families of other victims. But he didn't stop there. He immediately exposed the hospital's dark secrets to the media. When the public learned of the hospital's shady practices, they came in droves to demand justice. They trapped the hospital director in his car, pounding on the windows.